Welcome, Blood Brothers and Sanguine Sisters, to Deeply Discussing Dexter. I'm your host, Dale Maxfield. I'm joined by Aaron Caldwell.
Hello.
Brooke Merritt.
Hello.
And Zach Rowland.
Heyo.
And today we are talking about Season 1, Episode 4, Let's Give the Boy a Hand. This is an interesting episode. It's probably the first, I think, that doesn't have Dexter killing an extra person for just the episode itself. There's enough plot going on that they don't feel the need to do that. So it's fairly focused on the ice truck killer and Dexter's relationship with Rita. What did you guys think of this episode overall?
Not one of my favorites. I thought it was a little bit weak compared to what we've had so far.
How so?
I didn't think there was a whole lot going on. I don't really know what it was I didn't like. I just felt like it was kind of flat.
Okay.
I actually kind of enjoyed this one. It focused a lot on Rita, and I thought her character needed that.
Yeah, I liked it well enough. I wouldn't say it was probably necessarily a memorable episode, but I do remember some of the stuff from it after watching it again. So, it was. I think that there was some interesting parts of it, but all in all, it was just an okay episode.
Okay. Well, let's go through the ice truck killer plotline. That's where the episode starts, and it's a crime scene that's just a man's hand posed to match a family photo of Dexter. We flash back to when they took that original picture, and this is kind of the game of this particular episode. Is it's a lot of use of the crime scene to reflect back to Dexter's past and give him an excuse to talk about how he has learned to fake his feelings and fake being in a relationship or fake dating and all that kind of stuff. Dexter rushes home to his apartment to confirm that the killer had access to the photos, and then LaGuerta is still focused on Tucci, even though they have a pretty good Deb and Dexter have pretty much figured out that it's not him. Matthews comes in and tells her that the hand belongs to Tucci, and he admonishes her for basically giving a press conference and starting a manhunt without the facts. So they've obviously been looking for the wrong person, which ends up with Dokes in charge of the severed hand case, and he goes out to look at it, and the cartel men that are now after him because he's been made bait are watching him from the crime scene. Meanwhile, LaGuerta goes to Tucci's mother to apologize, and LaGuerta promises to find Tucci's body, which they're at this point assuming he is dead.
Yeah, this one kind of jumps around to a lot of different things. I mean, I think it starts off, with remembering that the whole focus of the season is about the ice truck killer. Because sometimes when it starts off, we're not sure. It's it can go the direction of, this is going to be like a Dexter episode, or this is going to be this character episode. But this one was don't forget, the ice truck killer is still doing his thing, and now it's even more specific to who Dexter. And I think we get that from Dexter's inner monologue, where he knows that there's the line about the puzzles, right? He's got pieces of the puzzle that they don't have. Referring to the other detectives and stuff like that. So, but then it starts to kind of explode and go all over the place, and you're following a lot of different things that are happening around with the characters.
I think that might be one of the reasons I didn't love this episode, because it was almost just too much going on. Couldn't get too into one storyline, for it would go down another road and then another road. Plus, I've never been a fan of the flashbacks. It was pretty flashback heavy, so that's probably affecting my judgment. But yeah, there was just so many different storylines, kind of jump from one second to the next, to the next, to the next, to where you couldn't really focus in on what was going on.
Yeah, and I mean, to me it was kind of there's two prongs of the episode, which are, there's this three-way race for who's going to figure out who's going to win between the killer versus Miami Metro versus Dexter. The killer has the most information on what's going on. Dexter is in second, and Miami Metro is way in last. And then they're using the fact that the killer has information about Dexter and that he's taunting Dexter with these thoughts to work on the other prong of the episode, which is Dexter's relationship with Rita and how he grew into the person that was able to actually even have some kind of something that resembles an adult relationship. So it's kind of those things going on, but the flashbacks are always about Dexter and Rita, or Dexter's ability to relate to women. They don't usually have anything to do with the actual killing part of it, because those are things that the killer couldn't know. The killer wasn't around when those flashback things are happening.
This the episode starts off when they're out on the beach and they find that the hand, and that scene, it really drives home how awkward and how not understanding Dexter is about the things that he says. Because the first thing he says when he sees a hand is "interesting hand job." And of course, Batista thought it was hilarious, but the look of confusion on Dexter's face when he says it was funny is just priceless to me.
Well, and we can't forget the fact the title of the episode is "Let's Give the Boy a Hand." As soon as you hear that, it's like, oh, okay, they're going to find a hand. So, you knew going in, they're going to find a hand.
Yeah.
True.
It's another pun, not quite as bad a taste as popping cherry, but yes.
Bad
another pun title for an episode, yeah.
And I feel like we can put this on the list for best quotes. Interesting hand job.
Yeah. All right. So then they get to a new crime scene with a foot and a soccer ball. Dokes and the people that are tailing him are there. The new photo shows that the killer knows about the fact that Dexter is killing people. And in a flashback, Harry tells Dexter that people remember bullies, so he should be good to fit in. Which comes into play later with the whole Dexter and the dog story. LaGuerta puts Deb on the detail of watching a giant box of security tapes. And that's pretty much where Deb is for the rest of the episode, is watching tapes.
Yeah, sometimes Deb gets, she gets the short end of the stick, but inevitably, she even says it later, right place at the right time. She was sitting in the office and got a message. So, being at the right place at the right time doesn't even mean that you're actually on where you find the crime scene. It's like she's got an angel, which is her brother, looking out for her constantly, giving her everything,
Good thing, because she screws up a lot, so she needs that.
Yeah. I was I was thinking in this episode about how completely off and bizarre she looked in that particular pantsuit that she wears in this episode. It's just so not her. It's like she went through LaGuerta's little sister's wardrobe or something, and that's what she's wearing.
And decided to feather her hair to make it even worse.
Yeah, it bad.
Yeah, it's not good.
Dexter runs a bunch of tests on the foot and drops a test tube. Angel shows Dexter a diamond-studded 4-leaf clover that he's going to give his wife. Dexter's like, this looks like a butterfly. Dexter figures out that the foot and the hand, which were found 2 days apart, are the same level of decomposition when they're found, meaning that they were cut from a live person. So LaGuerta changes her effort to find Tucci alive. She also calls the mother to fill her in on what's going on. Dokes runs a briefing to try and find more leads, and then Dexter reflects how he knows more about what's going on because of the photo connection. He suggests that the places are all places that have changed names, which is a lead that only he understands, but helps them try and track down where the next crime scene is going to be. LaGuerta goes to a vigil for Tucci. Tucci's mom gives her a St. Anthony's chain. And then LaGuerta and Dokes have a conversation about Tucci, where Dokes says, yeah, you did fuck that up. They leave and accidentally turn the light out on Deb, who's still stuck watching surveillance tapes.
This this scene, specifically when LaGuerta goes to the vigil, it's like they realize that everybody in the world is going to hate LaGuerta by this point in the show, and so they were trying to humanize her.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that made me the most upset, and this is kind of just, I don't even know why I was so upset about it, but the fact that they had her call the mom and be like, you know, just anything to do with it. Like, she's like divulging too much information when, like, you look at police officers today and they're like, at this time we don't have enough information. Like, she's just like giving it out freely, especially to the mother.
I was screaming at the screen, stop it, no, because then, like, he's definitely gonna die, because I don't remember what happened from when I watched this in the beginning. I thought, well, she just killed him, because if you tell his mom that he's probably alive, well, now he's gonna die.
Yeah, she's fighting to make sure that that she's the only person, or that she's giving the information to the mother so that she's not finding stuff out from the press, and that she feels more tuned in. And it's kind of a way for LaGuerta to control her more than anything else.
So you don't think it was more of an attempt to humanize her a little bit because, like Aaron said, everybody really hates her at this point?
I mean, it's kind of her role in the show to be this sort of disliked character. I didn't feel a whole lot of sympathy for her when she went from chasing down Tucci as the bad guy to suddenly realizing that he was the good guy, just because it was more of like, it seemed to me more of a reaction to her getting in trouble than it was a reaction for her being more humanized.
I mean, I definitely was cheering when the captain was, reaming into her, so I agree with you on that, but I almost feel like they were over pushing, trying to humanize her, and I don't buy it.
Well, and when she's at the church with the mother, like, she's trying to do less than what the mother wants her to do. Like, she doesn't want to be introduced. She just wants to be in control of how she's using the mother to get what she wants versus actually being there out of sympathy. Deb offers Dexter $1 million for a hunch on where to look. She says something about Dexter's favorite place, and so Dexter goes to this it's like a power pole power line with a smiley face cut into it that was next to a landfill. That was, I guess, his favorite place according to a photo.
I thought it was a palm tree.
It was something like that. It just has a smiley face carved into it.
Yeah, because it's whenever they pull back into him in the real time, it's just the palm tree with the housing units behind it, and there's like a circular drive around it.
Right, and the reason it's a change thing is that it was a landfill when he went there, and now it's condos. So his favorite place was a happy face carved next to a landfill.
Because why not? Of course it's a landfill.
Oh, man. But yeah, he liked watching all the trash get buried. He thought that was cool. Like, no one will ever find this again. That flashes back to another picture of them at a pumpkin patch. Dexter shows that he's faking that he's having a good time, and he's doing it successfully. Then back in present times, they find the lower leg on the hayride at the pumpkin patch. And Angel shows Dexter yet another potential gift, which looks like the word ox.
And tic-tac-toe. It looks like tic-tac-toe as well.
It's a hug and a kiss.
And Dexter says he wouldn't want it to look like someone was playing tic-tac-toe on her head, which I thought was great.
So here's a question I have. And this is in the writing, obviously, but like we talked earlier about how Deb gets stuck with a box of surveillance camera tapes that she has to watch as she's in the office. Do you think that obviously she would have like had an insight to these locations? Because she was at probably most of the locations as a child as well. We know the hayride for sure, and the beach for sure. And I don't know if she was at the garbage place as well. I don't think so, but do you think that she would have been like, Dexter, why are we finding body parts at all the places we came to as children?
That's a good question. I think the reason that they would be more memorable to Dexter than Deb is that they're sort of signposts of him learning how to fake humanity. And he has the photo album. I don't know that she necessarily has copies of all those photos. Some of the later ones too, like the landfill thing, there's no evidence that she went to that one. And the hospital that's coming up, there's no evidence that she was at that part. That was just a Harry and Dexter thing.
Yeah, and I'm trying to give her more credit than she's probably worth, I guess, but she's kind of a bad detective, so she probably wouldn't think that far into it or that deep into it to be like, oh yeah, this could be tied to something else.
Yeah, there's a good argument to be made that she should have figured some of that stuff out, and then there's also the side of it that is, she really is unable to think because all she's doing is watching surveillance videos. Mm-hmm. So, nothing is probably occurring to her except how bored she is.
She is one of my favorite plot devices in this movie, or prop, I guess. When she's in the room watching nothing but videotapes, every now and again she just yells out at people outside of the room, but they keep her in the room. So it's always muffled, or she's opened the door to yell, and I thought that was hilarious.
Dexter finds a picture of him and Harry in front of Angel's Mercy Hospital, which flashes back to them talking about how that's where Harry's father worked as a janitor for his whole life. Dexter turns the whole idea of, fake or smile for a family photo back against Harry, who's not feeling well, and so they get this other picture taken. So that picture has a lot more meaning than it would suggest just looking at it. And then Dexter goes to the abandoned hospital and finds Tucci alive, amputated, and blindfolded.
Yeah, there's a lot to look at, I think, with the way that he sort of discovers all of it. Obviously, we talked about how he, these are those moments that are significant for his learning purposes from Harry, but then just the evolution of a killer. And he's a killer, but he's not a killer, I suppose. So, I think that's what makes this one of those episodes that's it's okay. It's got some interesting stuff. They're putting some stuff into it, character development-wise. But then, at the same time, there's so much other things, so many other plot, so many other ways that the plots are going and subplots and everything like that you forget about Dexter's progress as a serial killer, essentially, to some degree.
Yeah.
Well, and I thought the ending of this one was really strong because as weak as I thought the episode was overall, the ending was the strongest, I think, so far. Because when Dexter realizes in that scene where he comes in, he finds Tucci and he sees the tools laying around him, and he realizes that the ice truck killer thinks he has him pegged, but really he's way off base. And I think there's some ease in Dexter realizing, okay, he doesn't see who I am at all. And when he has the line, I'm something new entirely, I'm Dexter, I'm yeah, okay, now we're getting somewhere. All right.
Yeah. And he's been set up to be killed by Dexter, but Dexter doesn't do it. And then someone who we don't see, who is probably the killer, makes a noise. Dexter reels around and he snaps a photograph of him. So, again, going back to the whole photo motif and the game that they're playing. Back at Miami Metro, Deb is given a tip that leads her to Tucci. Surprise, surprise, it's an anonymous tip from Dexter. LaGuerta shows up, angry at Deb once again for figuring something out before she did, and she tells Angel to use Deb to work the scene. Angel lies to Deb and says his wife loved the necklace, and then Dexter returns home and says he's not the monster the killer wants him to be. He didn't kill Tucci like he had wanted to.
I want to go back to the start of this scene at the flashback to the hospital real quick. I didn't understand the point of this flashback. They had already had a flashback where it talked about faking family photos, so this one just seemed like, how are we going to introduce this location and why it matters to Dexter? It was the first flashback of the show that I didn't feel like he learned anything new, or we learned anything new about Dexter.
Right, but the killer used it because it's the last picture with Harry and Dexter together in the photo album. Because Harry's getting ready to go into the hospital and get sick.
And I think it also displays that Dexter is understanding the code fully, because he turns the code back on Harry, whereas, we're always seeing Harry teaching him and telling him what the code is and different interpretations, and in this one he turns it back on Harry, and it's kind of like saying, okay, Dexter gets it. This is when Dexter figured it out.
Absolutely.
I can see that.
So that's the ice truck killer plot for this episode. It's kind of this... I think it's interesting. I like the game between the photographs and how Dexter's like just a couple of steps ahead of the police on everything as they work through this one. The other, like I said, the other big plot line is the Rita plotline, and that starts with Dexter scooping out pumpkin goo to carve pumpkins for Halloween. The kids complain about a noisy dog. Dexter offers to talk to the neighbor and then insists on doing it because Rita's reluctant to do it. So he goes over and talks to her, and she refuses to do anything about it and slams the door in his face, which I think a lot of the audience, ourselves included, were like, I wonder if she's going to end up dead in this episode. Dexter, Rita, and the kids go Halloween shopping. Dexter says, I love Halloween. It's the time of year when everyone wears a mask. And Dexter offers Rita a witch costume. She says she's going to be Snow White this year again. And Cody says he wants to be Joe from Blue's Clues.
Which, come on, Cody, I expect better. Joe, it's not even Steve.
And how old is Cody? Isn't he a little old to want to be a Blue's Clues character? I think he's a little old for that.
Yeah, I feel like there was some kind of weird Dexter Blue's Clues crossover potential there, or some kind of weird cross promotion going on, because nobody talked about Joe.
Yeah, I don't. Was Joe related to the producer? Who talks about Joe from Blue's Clues anyway? That's like the Blue's Clues lost years.
Yeah, exactly.
I like too that she told him that a rugby shirt's not a costume. And then it's kind of like, but does he even know what rugby is? He's like in that weird middle age of being like, he knows Blue's Clues and Joe, but he doesn't quite probably know what rugby is. But his mom's like, rugby shirts are dumb. It's a good parent moment, I think.
He goes and tells all the other kids at school, Blue's Clues is dumb because they wear rugby shirts.
I did like another thing in the scene where Rita says that she's going to dress as Snow White, and Cody asked her, say, you do that every year.
Because she is Snow White.
Exactly. I love that. She's so pure in comparison to Dexter.
Yeah, so then Rita makes an attempt to confront the neighbor about the dog, and the neighbor just laughs at her. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like animal neglect should fall under the code. We should contact the writers.
Dexter would be so much more busy. So then Dexter gives the kids a ride home and tells them they won't have to worry about the dog anymore, which we initially assume means that he's either killed the dog or killed the woman or taken the dog away or whatever. But that flashes immediately to Rita driving away with the dog and giving it to the family of one of her coworkers at the hotel. Dexter has this silly display at his house showing the dismembered body parts floating around, which is one of those this isn't how crime scenes or computers work kind of funny, goofy things going on. But he just has the foot, the lower leg, and the hand just floating around on his screen like a screensaver. It's pretty bad. Then Rita shows up in her trench coat over the Lara Croft costume. The episode I found to be a lot more interesting at this point. Rita makes a move and Dexter tries to wave her off, but Rita is too excited and ends up going down on Dexter. Dexter says, "What are you doing?" Rita says, "Whatever I want." And then Dexter admits that this might be better than all the other things he does with Rita.
But I have a question. If rugby shirts don't make good Halloween costumes, do bikini tops make good Halloween costumes? I just want to question the consistency there. Just saying.
Yeah, I don't know that Lara Croft is a bikini top wearer. I think she was always more of a tank top, but
She was.
Yeah, I think the idea was still it was still commendable. I was very happy with Julie Benz in that outfit.
Julie Benz was great in this entire episode, but this scene really drove it home.
For some reason, I'm not relating on the same level to this part, I'm guessing.
Yeah, this is also my favorite part. I gotta wonder though. Earlier, one of the flashbacks, Dexter says, when you start to, Harry's like, you start to get romantic, and he's like, Dad, I've kissed a girl, and he's like, oh yeah, how'd it go? Which was also, when he said, he's like, oh yeah, how'd it go? Like, I don't know, that was a weird response to me from a dad being like, yeah, give me the juicy details, Dex. But so then I gotta wonder, when Dexter says this is better than the other stuff that I do with Rita, like, has he never gotten a blowjob before? I'm not like.
Oh, I doubt it.
Like, he does act like it's his first time. Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
I doubt he would have gotten a blowjob before if he's so. Yeah, if he's so anti-sex, if like sex is always the thing that gives him away to women, I'm sure that it's usually not the first thing. I don't know. It's usually not the first like sex act he would have probably attempted with other girls or other girlfriends.
Sure.
Well, and he's alluded to a really bad romantic history, obviously, but we've never heard that he was in any kind of relationship, and he's not going to be pursuing like one-nighters or pickups in bars, so he probably never really had a relationship that made it past, one or two dates before he creeped the woman out.
Yeah, and it would have always been the girl initiating it, and you don't often see women showing up in Lara Croft costumes and going down on you. That would be wonderful if you did, but it doesn't happen that often.
And there was a time.
2006
I'm
was
learning
that year.
so much.
But the other thing too is that there's the scene where he's cutting the grass and that girl signals him to ask her to the dance, and she doesn't, and Harry's right there to say like that's what she wanted you to do, and he says, well, I don't really care about girls. And Harry's like, oh, really? And he's like, no, I'm just like not interested in that. I like the things that I like. None of that stuff interests me.
I love that scene because when she asks him about the dance, he just looks at her and he's like, why though? It's so good.
She says, are you going to the dance? And he says, why would I want to do that?
It just shuts her down so hard. It's so brutal.
She just turns around and walks away. So yeah, I mean that's growth right there from shutting someone down with one phrase to Lara Croft. That's a pretty big swing.
Good for him.
But this scene was also Rita kind of coming into her own.
Yeah.
She had been so hung up on all the damage that her ex-husband had done. So this was a lot of growth for her.
Yeah, even driving around in a trench coat with that costume on was a stuff up for her.
Well, I think the nasty neighbor, the way she went after Rita, and Rita was so vulnerable and just such a weak person, but that just snapped something in her to where she had enough, and it grew her to this next level where she's gleefully driving down the road with Walter the dog in the car, and then decides she's going to get a little down and dirty. It's just something just snapped with the mean neighbor, and I love it.
Yeah. And their story ends in this episode where they're snuggling after the whole Lara Croft thing goes on. She's about to leave, but she notices the photos on Dexter's desk that he's taken out from the crimes, which she, of course, doesn't know are associated with the crimes. And she points out a photo that has Harry's shadow in it. He's sort of there. It's a cool symbolic picture, and she tells him to get it framed.
Yeah, she's definitely she's so invested into their life together that, you know, it's almost surprising to see her at his place to even that degree, because I think this is the first time we've actually seen her over at her. Isn't he mostly over at her place?
Yes.
I think you're right, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think she's been to his apartment yet on the show.
Yeah, so that's kind of like a big moment, and then but for her to be so in tune with him, even just on an emotional level, which we'll learn about, you know, in other episodes, how emotional she can be. But to take that picture and just know the significance of it, you know, it's so minute, but it's such a huge thing.
It's funny, when she shows up and knocks on the door, he's so taken aback by her being there. It's like it has literally never happened in their relationship. And so he doesn't even invite her in for a good, 30 seconds.
Yeah, well, and I think he figures out that the photos that are out they're not going to incriminate him to Rita. Whereas if it was like Deb or something, he'd have to scramble to clean up or not let somebody in.
Yeah, what if it was Dokes? He was just like, what are you looking at, you pervert? Looking at your old photos?
Surprise,
motherfucker!
Oh my god. Oh no.
Which, by the way, that should be a greeting for everything.
Somebody told me that we should call this podcast Surprise Motherfucker. I was like, I don't really want to have that much trouble with people finding us on iTunes.
Yeah. I think that could also be misconstrued as Samuel L. Jackson, too. Like, it's definitely Dokes, but, there's almost a hint to Samuel L. Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, come on now.
Yeah, well, speaking of Dokes, he has a plot line in this episode where the other cops have essentially set him up as bait, and he gets chased around, and finally, as it looks like he's about to get killed, the other cops show up and take out the bad guys for beating a cop, and it reveals that they were actually just using him to get those guys arrested, and they weren't actually trying to get Dokes killed, but he didn't know that, so he had a pretty nervous episode.
See, I actually wonder about that, because I feel like they were actually setting him up until that conversation in the break room where he tells him about his sister getting the divorce.
I think so too. It's too big of a risk for it to not be a setup. I mean, for it to actually be a setup, that's what I meant.
I agree.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if they would have let him die over it, but certainly, I think it certainly helped his chances of survival that they had the conversation and he told him that divorce was imminent and that she was already unhappy with the marriage, that he didn't have anything to do with that part of it.
It's a pretty big risk if that was a setup from the beginning. You know, let's just take him to their house, make sure they see him, and then we're just going to parade him around in public places while he's being stalked by them. They're not going to intervene in time in these public places where the guys are parked down the block. So, yeah, no.
And then the only storyline left is Angels, and oh my Angels.
Sad.
So he goes through the whole process of trying to pick out a gift, and then he shows Deb this stupid heart-shaped key, and Deb's like, yeah, sure, it's like something you would give a girlfriend in high school, but sure. Angel in the audience learns that he and his wife have been separated for over 3 months. We meet her for the first time. We learn that Angel had an affair that causes the rift, and then Angel ends up visiting his sleeping daughter and whispers Lo siento, which is I'm sorry, and he leaves the key on his daughter's table instead of giving it to his wife. So it ends up being more fitting because it's much more of a thing that you would give a child than an adult woman. But there you go.
Better than a necklace that says ox.
Ox. Yes.
That would have been wonderful. Just give that to your daughter. Here you go, ox.
You can play tic-tac-toe on your head. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the plot lines. The director was Robert Lieberman, who worked on D3 Mighty Ducks before Dexter. He directed episode 4 and 5, so he's going to be the director for the next episode as well. And then he's been doing various stints directing television. Nothing really noteworthy or anything that's stuck for more than a handful of episodes at a time. The writer was Drew Z. Greenberg, who was a story editor and writer on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He must have been a Joss Whedon guy because he worked on Firefly a little bit as well. And then on Dexter, he wrote 2 episodes, this one and season 1, episode 11. And he's since moved on to be a writer for Arrow and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Angels of S.H.I.E.L.D. would just be sad. It would be a lot of guys trying to buy jewelry for people.
The whole port show.
Hey, you think she's gonna like this shield?
Why would he ask
diamond encrusted shield?
Yeah. Maybe I'll get you an ox, Agent Coulson. So yeah, what do we think is the best line of the episode?
Interesting hand job.
That would be my choice for the worst line.
Okay.
I just like the I'm something new entirely, I'm Dexter. That was just such a strong pronouncement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that as best line.
Anyone else have a worse line contender?
Anything that Angel said.
Yeah, I think
when
anything
talking about
I think
the
Angel's
movie.
attempt to explain the X's and O's was the funniest of the like horrible Angel interactions in this. It's like hugs and kisses, like the X and the O and the
Ox.
Ox. Who do we want to give the performance of the episode to?
Walter the dog.
Walter the dog's owner.
Loved it.
How wonderful
choice.
was that? Like, cave troll.
But to get Walter to cry like that, and then his little happy face in the car, come on, that's
Well, she was beating him
commendable.
off camera, clearly.
Yeah. Well, here's another line we can add into the mix is the beagle has landed, which is something that
forgot
Dexter
that one.
says.
Ugh,
Yeah.
I almost turned it off.
So, yeah, that's it. That is season 1, episode 4. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.